There we go. All right. So
Multiverse of Marvel. 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 Multiverse of Marvel.
all right, everybody, welcome to the Multiverse of Marvel podcast, where each week or whenever I decide to record, our resident Marvel guys, Aaron and Dan Grindlay, and I always point like you're like right here still. And we'll dive into the crazy corner of the ever expanding Marvel multiverse to see which topic we're discussing this week. And this week we'll be talking about the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, Thunderbolts.
Yes, but I think before we get into that, though, I think what was it like? Last weekend was D23 or
Yeah, I
was
believe it was
D3?
last weekend. Yeah, we were camping. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was like a few Marvel things that dropped there. So I figure we should kind of just fly over those a little bit before we get into the topic of the week. So I think one of the things was Fantastic Four was actually like announced.
Yeah, they finally officially announced it, and who's directing it?
Yeah, it is the director of at least some of WandaVision, if not all of it, Matt Shakeman. Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah. So it would be they would be taking over that. So they didn't really say anything other than that it's happening.
Well, they're probably holding some stuff back because next month we have the New York Comic Con.
Oh yeah,
And you know,
that's right.
there's always got to be some sort of announcement for the New York Comic Con, so they always seem to
Okay.
hold something back for that.
Yeah, I keep on always forgetting that's in October. But like one of these years, I'm gonna get my passport and actually like go down and do that because now that I actually have a job where I can actually afford to do stuff.
Yeah, you
Like,
can actually go to one of the good cons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, well, not that well,
Not that we don't have good cons here; it's just not the big cons.
yeah. It's big for Canada, but yeah, it's not like it's not like San Diego or New York.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, because it's like what the third biggest in North America, I think, or third or fourth.
I believe so. It's up there.
Yeah. So if the Mexico City one hasn't overtaken us, yeah, we should be like third biggest, I think. But yeah, one of these years we're gonna make it down the air. So yeah, so probably something like that. So what do we think? Is John Krasinski going to be like mainstream Mr.
I don't think so.
Fantastic? Or no,
Doubtful.
yeah,
I don't think
probably
so.
not. Yeah, so
Doubtful.
that's probably just like just for like fan service for the Dutch.
That's what Feige was saying, that it was fan service, and the fact of they want to cast these guys and have them play these characters for years. And I mean, John Krasinski's in his 40s. There's like no guarantee that he's going to want to stick with a role like that.
Holy
And
shit.
on top of that, you have to cast everybody else around him, so then they have an older set of heroes, and you got to worry about who wants to stick around long term at that point, right?
Yeah, but he's like a dad and stuff. Like, couldn't he be like old too though?
He could be, but I mean, Reed's not supposed to be that much older than everybody with him, apart from Johnny.
There you go.
Because I mean, he and Ben are supposed to be the same age.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because they in some continuities they grew up together. Some other continuities they went to school together.
University.
And we're
Yeah,
kinda
university.
like friendly rivals sort of thing, or
No,
something?
like they actually
No.
got along great because like Reed was the super science guy, and whenever someone would try to pick on him, well then suddenly Ben Grimm would show up. And Ben Grimm was the big
Okay.
jock who had
Okay.
needed help with work, so Ben
Okay.
Grimm would help him or get help from Reed Richards. I mean, sorry.
There you go. Yeah.
But I got a feeling they're going to cast younger and try to go because with the Marvel stuff, they haven't really been going for huge names a lot of the time. They try to find someone who's on the up and up who, has enough of a name that you recognize them, but not enough that they're a huge star.
Yeah.
With the exception of Scarlett Johansson and a few others like that.
So that'd be interesting. Yeah, so probably like maybe like 2024, 25 probably when we'll see that movie. I think probably.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next is Ironheart, Riri Williams. Yeah, I think we saw her in the Wakanda trailer, right?
Yep,
For the,
yep. She's supposed to first appear in that.
yeah. So like, yeah, so that would be like she'll be kind of like because she's the one that like kind of makes her own like Iron Man.
Yep, she does her own sort of Iron Man armor because
Like,
she's that
premise,
level of intelligence where she's
She
Stark
just-
smart, but she doesn't do the same sort of stupid things Stark does.
Yeah, she's like, hey, I can do that sort of thing and does her own.
Yep.
Nice.
And the Hood's going to show up in that show. I guess he's going to be her friend at first, and then I assume will become the villain later.
And who's that?
He is
Parker Robbins.
Yep. Let Aaron take over this one.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no.
Sorry.
The Hood was one of the characters just kind of thrown out there in the early 2000s. It was a mini series by Brian K. Vaughan and Kyle Hotz. 6 issues. Kind of the anti-Peter Parker. Parker Robbins grew up the son of a low-level thug. His dad had actually like seen a couple of superhero battles as a kid. Parker had watched like the televised battle between Daredevil and Bullseye that had happened.
Oh, that's
So,
where
like-
that's where like Pete kills Daredevil or whatever. Or,
No, this is long before then.
Oh, okay.
This is something that happened back like in the 70s.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it was just like a big old fucking
Yeah, one of the
to the tits.
one of Bullseye's plots to take out Daredevil involved like, some sort of televised event. So their fight was broadcast for God knows how many people to see. But, Parker, he's a criminal, like 19-year-old kid or something. But he's got a certain amount of respect for the superheroes, at least in the original miniseries. When trying to find a good heist, they end up finding a Nascenti demon, something that's been mentioned before, I think, in Runaways. And in Doctor Strange, something Brian K. Vaughan likes to drop into bits of things that he does here and there in the Marvel Universe, just to kind of tie things together. But he kills this demon, just straight up shoots it dead. And not wanting to leave this heist empty-handed, he takes its boots and cloak. And in escaping from another group of thugs, he ends up putting on the demonic boots and finds that he can walk on air. And then when he puts on the cloak, circumstances end up revealing to him that if he holds his breath, he can turn invisible. So he in the original miniseries, he goes about trying to correct the mistakes he's made that have gotten him into trouble with a mid-tier crime boss, somebody who can boss around a lot of the Spider-Man type superpowered criminals, but not somebody so high up that he'd be like, telling Kingpin what to do. But at the end of it, it leaves a big question mark as to whether or not Parker could become a hero or a villain. And then a few years later, like nothing's happened, but it was Joe Quesada who had the initiative for it, if I recall correctly. That one of the higher ups at Marvel points out like, hey, we've got a bunch of these like fairly recently created characters that like are just kind of falling by the wayside. Like we should be doing more with them. And that's when like the Sentry became a part of the Avengers, and Parker Robbins popped back up to fill the power void left in. When did he take over? It was before Siege, before Secret Invasion. Dan, do you remember when he took over the criminal syndicates? Was it Civil War?
I don't think it happened in Civil War, but shortly after Civil War. I think that was one of the big things that happened in that Bendis run of New Avengers was all that started that.
Yeah, because there was this power vacuum where there was nobody really aligning and directing the various superhuman criminals. So Parker Robbins stepped up to do the job and actually did a surprisingly good job of it. Things continue with him, the nature of his demonic powers, how they keep progressing. Like he doesn't need to use the boots after a while. He doesn't need to hold his breath to turn invisible. Like these powers just keep working with him, and other freaky shit happens too.
And he's going to be showing up in the show.
Yeah, but they've already cast him, and you've already seen him in like some still pictures.
Nice,
it's distinctly him because he's wearing a red cloak with a big red hood on it.
Nice. Right. Nice. So yeah, do we know when that's coming out or
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I think a lot of the stuff they
Uh,
say is just 2023 or
late
2024.
2023 is what I'm looking at here.
all right. So that'll be out sometime next year, yeah. And then after that is the Captain America New World Order. And they're saying that the leaders could be coming back
Yep. I'm
That
excited for
sounds
that.
good.
from the
Yeah. Been
from
waiting for
the
that for a while.
yeah
Yep.
because you kind of we're kind of ignoring the Incredible Hulk movie after they came out really. So that's good that
I'm sure some
Well, they
sort
acknowledged
of
a few
rights
things, right?
Yeah,
have,
like they
straightened out, I'm sure.
slowly, yeah. So like
I
so,
did like the She-Hulk line of Hook saying that he is literally a different person now.
yeah. And I think I just still need to watch last week's episode still. But yeah, but like I'm almost caught up with that. Yeah. So
It's
but,
been fun.
yeah, so
It's our Thursday morning show. Me and my daughter. I wake her up early before school, and we go watch She-Hulk.
yeah, I know, like like that it being on Thursday, I think is throwing me off.
Yeah, having a new day, a new show on that day is a little off. Yeah,
So
I'll admit I've woken up a couple times on Wednesday, went to put it on, couldn't find the new episode.
Yeah, but it makes you feel like a kid again, having like a weekly show to look forward to.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So so that's what I've been missing with like Netflix and stuff, and they just drop like everything. Yeah, so
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, so then so that is coming out. I think May 3rd, 2024. So yeah, so we got like 2 years, or just under 2 years for that to come out still. Then after that is Werewolf by Night, which I think
That one comes out this Halloween, I believe. It comes out in like a month.
Nice, and yeah, because we've talked about this before, right? Because
now that we've seen the trailer, we've seen that we're getting a bunch of other characters we didn't know about. Man Thing's going to be in there.
Is this where Blade came from, or is that who came from this, or somebody else?
Character wise, who spawned
Moon
from
Knight
what?
came from Werewolf by
Moon
Night.
Knight. Okay, that's it. Yeah.
So there are people thinking that there's a possibility maybe Moon Knight might show up, but I'm not necessarily holding my breath.
Okay, yeah. So yeah,
I think it's a better chance than others because
Mephisto.
No. But from a publishing
Man Thing.
standpoint, Marvel's always tried to at times push Moon Knight as being more of like a supernatural themed character, and this is the sort of thing that would actually help encourage that viewpoint. So could happen, I think.
Yeah, it says October 7th. Yeah, so like
Coming right up.
Couple weeks. Did you watch that trailer yet, Aaron?
No, I haven't had a chance to yet.
I'm fairly certain that you like Simon Garth is in the trailer too, and it looks exactly like Simon Garth.
Got the amulet of Damballa around his
Well,
neck.
it looks like it's an animatronic, but like it looks like they did like an animatronic for the zombie. Possibly, you should watch the trailer and see when we're done this.
Quick little, quick little. Who's that?
Oh, Simon Garth. He is the Marvel zombie.
Oh, okay.
He's the zombie.
He's from an anthology book that Stan was writing back in the 50s. I think it was Menace that the original Tales of the Zombie story showed up in. But in it, businessman Simon Garth stands up to his shitty groundskeeper and ends up killed for his troubles. And the shitty groundskeeper enslaves Simon Garth's corpse to become his slave. And this is all fine for the shitty groundskeeper until he sends the zombie after the beautiful local girl who keeps rebuffing his advances. The zombie storms up to this girl to snap her neck, and it's his daughter. Hold is broken. He goes back and snaps the neck of the shitty groundskeeper. That was the story. That was it. But then in the 70s, when Marvel expands all their horror stuff and they start doing more of the magazine stuff, Tales of the Zombie was revived as an ongoing serial there. They adjusted the artwork a little bit, made the hairstyles a little bit more 70s-ish, and republished the original short story as the first installment of an ongoing serial where the amulet of Damballa, which controls Simon Garth, following the murder of the shitty groundskeeper, that amulet goes from hand to hand to hand to hand, and people use the amulet and Simon to varying levels of responsibility. There is a happy ending to the story. Simon is laid to rest. The original magazine ends with stories to be continued, but that didn't happen until like the early 90s with Daredevil. There was a one-off story in the 80s which has some really great artwork somewhere in Bizarre Adventures, but it doesn't fit in continuity. Like there's a strong chain of continuity from who has the amulet from event to event to event. And this 180 story tries to shoehorn something in that doesn't fit anywhere. Still a great story, but yeah, it's not until Calypso, Craven's ex-lover, sometime foe of Spider-Man. Yeah, she's trying to mess around with Daredevil. She's playing around with blood she took from the Infinity Wars doppelganger. Yeah, that's a whole fun story there. But yeah, there is a literal Marvel zombie wandering around the Marvel universe.
All right, yeah, so that comes out October 7th, so in a couple of weeks, so that would be good. And do we know how many episodes that's going to be?
It's just, I think it's just a special. I think it's just the one episode.
Seems like it's a one-shot special.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. All right,
I like that idea.
That'd be good. Yeah. So then after that, is Secret Invasion.
That one I'm excited
This'll
for.
be
That one,
interesting.
Yeah. So
that one's got a lot of potential.
Yeah. Because,
Oh, you
like,
got to
same-
imagine the betrayal that Fury's got to be feeling if the Skrulls are just outright trying to take over.
Well, that's the thing, though. When from looking at the trailer, it looks like the Skrulls don't even know this themselves because Talos looks shocked this is happening as well.
Well, also when you consider that Talos is, I'm pretty sure, a bad guy straight up in the comics.
Yep.
He's,
But no,
if
it
I
does
remember
show-
correctly,
it does
he's the
show
one who
scenes in-
can't shapeshift, right?
I honestly, I can't
Talos
remember.
the Tamer. There's one that just can't shapeshift and relies on like typical like disguises and makeup effects and stuff like to hide himself and just be like the Skrull kind of thing that he can't be. It's really kind of endearing and pathetic all at the same time.
Nice. Then so it's gonna have Sam Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think I asked you guys last time. Did you see that one show that Ben Mendelsohn was in, the Outsider? That was, I think, it was like it's based on a Stephen King book. It was pretty good. You should check it out.
Outlander?
The Outsider.
Outsider, okay.
Yeah.
All I can think of is H.P. Lovecraft's The Outsider. And I'm
No.
sure that's not it.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely not it. No, but yeah, you should definitely check it out. It's pretty good, and he's Ben Mendelsohn's really good at it. So you should definitely check it out. So yeah, so after that, is Daredevil Born Again.
That's another one I'm
That
really
could be
excited
interesting.
for.
Yeah, so that's
Quite interesting. 18 episodes.
Yeah, so that's so do you think they're going to like break it up into like two parts and stuff, or do you think it's just gonna be like a flat out like 18
I would like to see them do it once a week, one episode a week for 18 weeks straight. I would like to see that. I don't think they will. I mean, I feel like they probably will break it up like you're suggesting.
Yeah,
I think it'll come
unfortunately.
in varying arcs. Like I don't think it'll be a solid like 1/2, second half, 1/3, second third, third. No, I think that it'll crest and peak and dive and dip. I think it'll be well, with 18 episodes to play with. Like I hope that they're really going to start to dive into more of the mythology. Like I'm definitely hoping that characters like Nuke are going to show up, in their Nuke,
Get to be
in his Nuke
themselves,
persona.
yeah.
Given our discussion of Thunderbolts, Nuke is a character that could parlay into a further movie of Thunderbolts. Like
Yep.
he's another character.
because he showed up in like Jessica Jones, right?
Yes, he did. That is correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we could bring him back in
Yeah.
Daredevil Born Again, and then
Yeah.
have him like be the proper Nuke.
Yeah.
Like give me a red, drop him in the neighborhood, and just watch him go to town destroying Hell's Kitchen.
And I can't remember. And the 3 seasons on the Netflix, did Fisk already figure out that Daredevil is Matt Murdock? Or
Oh, yeah.
I can't
Oh yeah, that
remember.
was like the end of the first season.
I
Oh,
think
that's
that's
right.
why that story doesn't necessarily carry over to what they're doing here.
Yeah, so
The
yeah,
characters, certain portrayals may, but the history
Yeah.
of what actually happened, I don't think that will factor into
so,
this.
Okay, yeah, so
Now
So
I
the-
hear that I heard a rumor today that Foggy will be back for it, which makes sense.
that's good.
I liked him. I liked him.
I imagine Karen will be back for it
I
too,
hope so.
considering she was great in it as well.
yeah, she's right too. Yeah.
I do hope that Vincent D'Onofrio has read a lot more comics featuring the Kingpin by this point.
Well, Aaron, you know why he was wearing that Hawaiian shirt in Hawkeye?
That's from one of the graphic novels, isn't it?
Exactly, but Vincent insisted on it because he knew it was officially a Kingpin look, and it establishes him as Kingpin without putting him in as the Kingpin, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, always after that. Yeah. Do we know when Daredevil is coming out yet? Or
Early 2024 is the preliminary idea.
so far away, but at least
We'll see what happens.
But at least we're getting more Daredevil, so that's the main thing. So, and then speaking of more Daredevil, we're getting Echo.
Yep, that one should be coming out before Daredevil.
That's apparently in post-production now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they've filmed most of it. I believe Daredevil is showing up in it, and I mean, obviously Vincent D'Onofrio is his Kingpin.
Because he showed up at the that was the character that was in the Hawkeye show, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that is coming out. I
think that one's next year.
2023.
Yeah, so it doesn't say what exactly. Yeah, so it's sometime next year. So
yeah.
So
we'll probably get the Secret Invasion and the next season of What If will probably happen before we get Echo.
I'm down for both of those. So yeah, but I'm always down for more D'Onofrio, and I think I remember like an Echo in the show, so I'm always down for.
Hey, if Born Again gives us a proper Elektra finally, then spin that off into some of the other stories that we've had. Oh, there's some potential there.
Yeah, that'd be good. So then after that is we're getting Loki season 2.
That should also be quite fun.
Yeah. So
I imagine somehow that'll tie in with Ant-Man, considering it's dealing with a lot of that Kang and all that stuff.
Yeah, the whole Kang thing, and then kind of resetting the I guess the one part of the multiverse, I guess, or whatever.
Who knows about resetting it?
Definitely or
whatever,
it more. Or whatever the fuck happened at the end of the.
That was the walls breaking down, so now they can get back and forth between all the multiverse and stuff.
Yeah,
I imagine.
Yeah.
It'll allow them to segue certain ideas and franchises into things, and if they want to, pretend like they've been there all along.
I.e., X-Men.
Like there's the X-Men have been a huge big omission from the MCU right from the start. It'll be something special when we finally get them in it.
So it'll be fun whenever that finally happens. Yeah,
it'll be like seeing Spider-Man and Captain America all over again. Wait, was it Captain America that he was in first?
Yep.
Civil
War.
Yeah, Civil War. Yeah. And then we got some Black Panther Wakanda Forever. You guys saw the trailer for that?
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a really good trailer, and actually it didn't really give much or anything of what the actual story is for it, which is rare for a trailer these days.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually made me actually want to see the movie a bit more than I already did. So, which is good. And that comes out, the day before my birthday, November 11th, 2022. Yeah, so that's like it'll be like the third or fourth Marvel movie that came out this year.
Yep.
And obviously the final one, because I don't think there's not a December one, So it's just
I don't believe there is either.
Yeah. So so that'll be the final one for the year. And then the final thing, which is kind of what we're talking about this week, is the Thunderbolts. It was part of Marvel's Phase 5. And did it say it's going to be a movie or is it going to be a show?
It's supposed to be a movie.
Yeah.
And honestly, out of all the characters that I'm seeing that are supposed to be in it, like only a couple, like Red Guardian's never been a Thunderbolt. Contessa Fontaine, she's never been one of them. Um, Yelena Belova was supposed to be one of them, but it turned out to be somebody else, just like impersonating Yelena to try to hide from Norman, but it didn't work.
Now, from what I understand, there's still a couple more characters they aren't showing in that promo picture that are supposed to be part of the Thunderbolts. And a lot of the fans are
Nice.
complaining about the fact that it doesn't seem so much as Thunderbolts as it seems more of a Black Widow reunion.
Yeah,
I'm looking at, like, we got Winter Soldier in it. In terms of Thunderbolts lore, he's the one who brought it back to what it should be after that shit show that was Ross's Thunderbolts. God, I hated that comic. We got Ghost coming back. Ghost in Ant-Man was pretty cool. Ghost was in the comics. Ghost was one of my favorite members of the Thunderbolts.
Nice.
Both incarnations that he was part of.
Yeah, and really, Ghost is only like different character of like what's in the Thunderbolts, because like in the movie it's like 5 super soldiers and Ghost.
Basically.
Yeah.
US agent, like his tenure in the Thunderbolts made me actually like him. He was the warden of the Thunderbolts prison when Luke Cage was in charge of the team. That was right after Siege, where he lost an arm and a leg.
Oh, yeah.
To Nuke. Yeah, that's right. Nuke sliced off his arm and leg. And that's why he refused to get cybernetic limbs. He's like, no, I'm not becoming like the piece of trash that did this to me. I'll just soldier on with just regular old prosthetics. And then Toxie Doxie just like straight up regrew his limbs while he was in a coma. The life of a superhero.
As you do.
Yeah, it's comics. Wild shit happens.
It says, why not?
But Thunderbolts, as like the way it's mostly done in the comics, I generally like. So depending on how they approach this one, I'm in for it.
So what is the like the comics team?
It has
your way up.
Yeah, it has changed.
Okay.
Incarnations. It started off as
is there like a kind of like a Suicide Squad where there's like a base team that like people would like kind of recognize, or is it
more or less?
So basically, there's been several different incarnations over the course of the history of the Thunderbolts, and these teams aren't always
overlaps of characters.
Exactly. So some of the teams are drastically different from others. Some of them have a few overlapping members. It's all over the place, really.
But they originally started off as Kurt Busiek just giving himself writing exercises, like when you're on long ass road trips from con to con, you got to do something to occupy your brain. So he's giving himself, okay, if I was going to plot out Avengers for the next year, what would I do? And he came up with this whole idea of the Masters of Evil wiping out the Avengers and setting themselves up as imposter replacements. And he thought this was a great idea, but he also rightfully recognized that there's no way that the brass will let me actually do this, not to the Avengers. So he just, files it away. But then a few years later, Onslaught happens, and a bunch of the mainstream characters are shunted off into a pocket universe. But to the mainstream 616, it looks like a whole bunch of the most beloved heroes have died. Within the context of the story, Baron Zemo was plotting his next Masters of Universe, big grand extravaganza, where he had taken a bunch of his various mainstays and a few new ones, came up with a new incarnation, came up with superhero identities for all of them, and we're going to befriend the Avengers and ingratiate themselves and weasel their way into their hearts and then gain all their secrets and take over the world. Mwahahaha. But then Onslaught happens, and all these heroes that they're going to be best friends with are all dead, and Zemo's all bummed out.
Did we ever get a what if where that part of it happened? Because I somehow have this feeling that Zemo would have just walked up to Cap and Cap would have just started feeding him.
Absolutely.
Like there is no way that he would have gone up to Cap and Cap would have gone, "Oh, hey,
you're not
nice
Zemo.
You're not Zemo." Like it would have just been Zemo would have said one word and Cap would have punched him and then kept punching him.
No, that would be a fun what if, just 22 pages of Cap just beating the crap out of Baron Zemo hiding out as Citizen V. Because yeah, when he first set this up, he was in his Baron Zemo body. There's lots of weird shenanigans that goes on with the whole Citizen V identity and who is or isn't, and there's even a question of gender at some point. Like, a female Citizen V shows up and they claim that like I'm the real Citizen V. So yeah, there's some wackiness. Um, but with the absence of all the heroes, they realize like, oh crap, we can fill this void. So their very first appearance was in an issue of Incredible Hulk. Um, there was supposed to be some other throwaway team used, but kind of like an Alpha Flight situation, or well, we can do something bigger and better with this. You got this idea for this Thunderbolts thing that we're setting up. Let's just have their introduction be here fighting the Hulk. They can take the place of this other team. And it's the only clue dropped in the earliest appearance of Thunderbolts that something might be amiss. The Hulk recognizes the voice of one of the Thunderbolts. The hero Meteorite, who's actually the villain Moonstone. She's fought Hulk a couple times. She
Moonstone.
has a
Who's
particular
Moonstone?
Carla Soffen. She is a psychiatrist who has a bad habit of manipulating her patients for
Likes
well,
talking a lot of them to kill
think
themselves.
I think 11 of her patients had committed suicide under her direction before she ever even got the Moonstone. She was the second person to carry the Moonstone. The previous guy had been a Hulk villain as well. It was a Kree Lifestone that the guy had found. Like, they didn't find this out until like late in the 90s, but it's this artifact giving them crazy power. She psychologically manipulates this dude into giving her the Moonstone, and then she has had it ever since, and has even manipulated things to gain additional Moonstones. She's had at least 2 for a good chunk of time. But they give her flight, super strength, energy projection, intangibility, a whole bunch of powers. But she's fought a Hulk a couple times, and he's like, your voice, I've heard your voice before, but no
Not
other
once.
hints. Next time we see them is in Tales of the Marvel Universe, which was a one-shot anthology book with a whole bunch of different stories in it. And it's just a generic, like, hey, here's the superhero team being superheroes, the kind of stuff you'd find in, any of this sort of anthology fare that Marvel's put out. Like Marvel Comics Presents, any summer annuals, so many different places. It doesn't feel out of place. So when issue 1 of the Thunderbolts shows up, where it's
And who's the
superhero title where it seems to be these guys are struggling, like they're
and
just...
who's the original team?
All right, so we've got the aforementioned Meteorite, who was actually Moonstone. Their leader is Baron Zemo, masquerading as Citizen V. He's taken the identity of not just a Golden Age superhero who had battled his own father, but he's also taken the identity of the grandson of that same hero. So he's claiming to be John Watkins III, and he's carrying on his grandfather's legacy as the hero Citizen V. We got the shape changing behemoth Atlas, who seems to have Pym particle powers where he can like grow. He doesn't ever seem to shrink, but he's actually
So just gets
Zemo's
big.
old buddy.
So it just gets bigger.
He's Atlas, but he used to be Goliath. Like he's a long time lieutenant to Baron Zemo. Like he was with Helmet Zemo before, or with Heinrich Zemo before he was ever with Helmet. So long time villain. We've got Techno, who's got this like cybernetic tech pack that he can like make all kinds of gadgets with. He's actually Fixer, guy who he was a section chief for Hydra. We've got Songbird, who's got she's got hard light powers. Like she's got this sonic carapace that can
So not
make
no
powers.
no soft light, only hard light.
It's derived from the villain Claw, like his
Kinda like it.
light solid sound projections.
Like the Jubilee's not like that's like Jubilee style, or is that something else?
No,
No,
you're thinking more of
Jubilee's
Dazzler than Jubilee.
Oh, okay.
Jubilee made
and even
subatomic
still,
explosions.
Okay. Okay.
yes, Jubilee just made shit blow up without the need for things to actually blow up.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a character that would be fun to get into. The amount of potential that hasn't been fulfilled with
The amount
her.
of people that say that she's useless and not realizing exactly what she does, that she theoretically could kill any of the characters in the Marvel universe.
Oh god, when Sync uses her powers to just blow up that building, and she's just utterly shocked that her powers could even do that.
Yep.
Yeah, fun times. But so Songbird used to be the villainous Screaming Mimi. She was one of the what were they? The Grapplers. Yeah, they
I
were
think
the,
I think that's what they were. The
the
grapplers.
Grapplers. They were a bunch of female wrestlers who took on bionic enhancements to
Go on.
do more stuff. Most all of them took some form of super strength enhancement, except for Melissa Gold. She took like a sonic scream that, depending on what notes she could sing, she could cause different effects.
Like Black Canary style.
I don't know enough about Black Canary, but I would assume so, because I would assume, just from what I know of her being such a badass, like I bet her powers are more nuanced than just loud banshee type scream. Because even then, like Banshee, I've seen how he can do what such a wide variety of things with his sonic scream. But if you look up her character directly, like on Wikipedia or Marvel Wiki, I'm pretty sure there is a list of like what notes she can sing and what specific effects they cause. But she burnt out her vocal cords when when her partner in crime, Angar the Screamer, got killed, and just like random security guard got off a lucky shot and just killed him, fatal wound. They get away and he drops dead, and she screams for like half an hour straight. So she gets picked up by Zemo. He uses Claw's technology to rebuild her vocal cords and give her this sonic carapace, where initially she can't do the harmonics. She doesn't seem to be able to sing the way she used to, but she can create Green Lantern style hard light constructs. And she's basically the Green Lantern of the group. She is also the most toyetic of the group. When they start getting licensing deals and stuff, like during Norman's reign, like he wants to get rid of her, but he can't, because the focus groups all love her. She identifies really well with the teenage girl demographic.
She's the one out of the entire group that truly takes to being a hero.
Yeah, that's like
She's a hit with 18 to 30, 40-year-olds.
Well, outside of their new recruit that they get a couple issues in, like she is the youngest out of all of them. And like she's still in her 20s, but you know, most all of these characters have storied careers. Like you got Mach 1, who's their Iron Man of the group. He was the old Spider-Man villain Beetle, who'd, you know, spent years being a fuck up of a criminal. He, like later on when they're actively seeking out redemption as the Thunderbolts, he's the one kind of holding them back because he's got a murder rap on his records. Like he legitimately killed somebody, and under Hawkeye's reign, he ends up having to answer to that, or answer for it, gets tossed in jail. But he's also one of the ones who wants to be a hero. Like once they get a taste, they're like, this feels a lot better than just getting our ass handed to us all the time.
Is it a couple of the Thunderbolts that gets like Spider-Man and it's in Civil War, or is that somebody else? I can't remember.
So in Civil War,
Civil War is a different scenario though, but yeah, there's a bunch going on with the Thunderbolts. Zemo, independently of Civil War, is building a superhuman army because he's playing a bigger game against the Grandmaster. Like what's going on in Civil War is just a fun little diversion to the bigger stakes he's dealing with. So as he's building the superhuman army, he's like, oh, this is what you guys are doing. Hey, registration, I'm all for it. This is actually kind of my thing. Here's all the resources I have. You know what I'm capable of. You know what I can control, what I can do. He's right there with Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man and the others. Like he's providing direct information and technology that they're using to make their like superhuman prison Like he is definitely full on registration side during all of it. So
Now, what you're thinking of Spider-Man though is that's the introduction of Norman Osborn's Thunderbolts.
that's a whole other
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
time.
You're thinking at the end of it
Steel
when
Spider-Man.
yeah, you're thinking at the end of near the end of Civil War when Spider-Man kind of decides that what Iron Man's doing is wrong and he has to go join the anti-registration side.
Yeah.
So Iron Man just six the new Thunderbolts on him.
Yeah, and then like
Granted, a bunch of them immediately get killed by Punisher, but still.
That's
like the one page where like the
immediately-
Punisher is carrying him back and he finds him like almost dead or whatever.
Yep.
That's also immediately before Norman Osborn takes over the Thunderbolts. Like it's the result of Civil War.
Because I think that's the only thing so far that I've read that has had any team of the Thunderbolts in it. That I remember at least.
Yeah, no, that the Warren Ellis Mike Deodato run is really, really good. But that's also much, much later. Like the initial run, like with these characters, it was Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley was the original artist.
Yep.
There's a couple of bits here and there, like Peter David wrote the issue of Incredible Hulk that introduced them, but they're still created by Bagley and Busiek. As their story goes on, they show up in New York. They deal with a couple of superhuman threats. The mayor's office they're like, okay, we need superheroes in New York to kind of keep things even keel. They send out a representative to kind of be the liaison, and this starts Zemo trying to build up the resources that they have. Like when they're first starting out, like Fixer builds himself a little butler robot to take care of his, hedonistic needs. He wants to relax, he wants to drink, he wants to smoke. Zemo destroys it because no, we can't be comfortable. If we look like we're not struggling, they're not gonna do their best to help us. If we're sitting in this shitty pizza parlor, hiding in their basement, using just the basest of tech, then they'll take pity on us and they'll give us Avengers Mansion. They'll give us, access to the Fantastic Four's building. Like, come on, we got to make this work. Like, no doing heists, no vendettas against any of your superheroes. We got to play this right. So like when Mach 1 comes back, he foiled a robbery, but he took the robber's loot. And it's another supervillain who's just straight up telling the cops he took the money. I mean, come on, guys, he's right here. He's like, oh yeah, we're gonna believe you supervillain. So yeah, he gets verbally bitch slapped by Zemo again. You got to commit to this. We got to make this work. Otherwise, the goal just won't happen. But he pushes them a little too far. They end up dealing with some Arnim Zola shit. In the aftermath of Onslaught, with all the destruction and all the deaths, he's had mercenary crews rounding up orphans so that he can experiment on them. One of them happens to gain proper superpowers as a result of his experimentation and gets away. And she gets the Thunderbolts, pours out her heart to them. This poor 14-year-old girl who's been experimented on. Zemo and a couple of others know Arnim Zola and know that he's a piece of trash. So, this is one of their big heroic moments. Take this orphaned girl who's herself has been looking after a bunch of other orphan kids who have been preyed on in the wreckage. Save the day, save all these kids. So this young girl takes on the name Jolt, and she joins the team. So they've got to keep up the pretenses 24/7. And, her enthusiasm is really rubbing off on the team. And of course, Moonstone, being a psychiatrist, is just watching all the psychological dynamics grow and change, and is just like, I wonder if any of these idiots actually know what they're doing. They're really forming proper bonds. This is becoming something that Zemo did not anticipate. Eventually it gets to the point where Zemo outs all of them because he himself realizes that they've gone too far, that too many of them like being heroes, and they're not going to accomplish his plans the way he wants. So he leaks to the media that they're the masters of evil, and suddenly they're on the run. A couple of characters feel pretty betrayed, um, and everybody's on their ass. Uh, but somebody does have their back. Hawkeye shows up kind of out of nowhere and explains to them like, I know what you guys are going through. I've been there. I was a villain who reformed and was invited to join the Avengers. Like, it's pretty infamous how when a bunch of the original Avengers retired, a bunch of former villains came in and replaced them. Like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver had been part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Hawkeye, I think, was originally an Iron Man villain when he first appeared. Like, he's got some history in this regard. So he comes to them, tells them that the government has offered them a pardon if they actually do this hero thing. The sad thing is he's full of shit. He is straight up lying to them when he says he's got pardons arranged. But he's got a plan behind this. Like, he knows that if they show the public like that they mean to continue to do good, that they don't care, that everybody knows that they're former villains, that they're going to keep doing what they were doing as Thunderbolts, then the redemption will come. And he ends up being right. Like, even after they find out that he lied to them, like, they're seeing the results of his efforts. Like, they do end up getting legitimate pardons. A few of them have to just go straight as a result. Like I said, Mach 1, who is Abner Jenkins, he has to go to prison because of the murder that he committed. But once he's in jail, there's a riot. His tech skills allow him to completely suppress the riot and allow no escapes, and also almost flawlessly cover up his tracks so nobody knows he did it, except the Commission for Superhuman Affairs. Like, they investigate and they're like, this shouldn't have happened like this. Something intervened, but we don't have any superheroes coming and dealing with this. What happened? They investigate and they conclude, like, okay, the only person even remotely capable of doing this was Jenkins. Okay, this guy is on the level. We can use him. They manipulate him and they, make him escape from jail so he can go on the lam and uncover a bigger conspiracy. But the stupid thing that results from that is, as part of his pardon, he has to have plastic surgery to change his face because, as far as the public's concerned, Abner Jenkins should still be in jail. But they make him black for some reason. Like, I don't know what to make of it. It's
makes you wonder whose idea that was and to what end.
I'd have to go back and double check when that happens and who was writing it. But like, there's some tension. Like, the character himself doesn't care. Like, he was raised in a neighborhood with an upbringing where skin color truly did not matter. Like, it doesn't matter to him one way or another. In fact, he kind of likes it because it really is more of a fresh start for him. Like, he's put his criminal past behind him and he can move forward as a completely new person. Unfortunately, by this point, he and Songbird have begun a relationship, and she's got the same sort of background as Rogue. She's Southern trailer trash. She's more Florida trailer trash than Louisiana, from what I can recall, but she's still got a prejudiced background. Like, she herself isn't racist, but because of how she was raised, she's just not comfortable with Abe's skin color after this point. So that brings it some soap opera drama, whatever. Not my favorite part of some of the comics. I don't like when they give characters relationships and then just start messing around with the, oh, is it going to work out? Oh, it's not. Is it? Oh, it's not. But is
Uh,
it?
the
It
When they
Ross
start
gets
doing-
Rachel of it
so
all.
old so quick.
When I watch a sitcom and it starts doing that, that's generally when I lose interest in the
That's the
sitcom.
death knell.
Yeah. Yeah, that's never fun when that happens, yeah.
But the rest of the team, they continue on with fighting the good fight. Uh, Around this time, things get more complicated because a new Citizen V shows up. This one is a woman. Um, there's a lot of twists and turns throughout Thunderbolts, so I don't want to give away certain character revelations. Like, as it is, the whole reveal of them being the Masters of Evil, that was kept a secret right up until the publication of issue 1, right until the reader got to the last page where Baron Zemo made the reveal. Like, it is literally on the last page of the first issue. And in the days of Wizard, like, there is still comic book press back in the 90s. There's lots of trade magazines, lots of fanzines. So there's tons of gossip, tons of behind the scenes information made available to the readers if you so desire to seek it out. This blindsided us. Nobody saw it coming. The next closest thing I can remember to the reveal of the Thunderbolts, as far as Marvel doing their stuff, was convincing the readers that the Sentry was a legitimate forgotten Stan Lee creation from the 60s. Like, that level of, like, just not seeing it coming. Like, there's a couple people that may have been able to figure things out pretty quick because that's just the way things are. I mean, one of the very, very long running subplots in Thunderbolts involves the Thunderbolts take over this one mountain that's been the headquarters for countless superhuman, various villain groups over the years. There's this one really old, obscure X-Men villain called Ogre who's been living there continuously, regardless of who's using this base. This one guy, Ogre, has always been there. And there's some person, mutant in stasis, that he is keeping a secret from everybody. The identity of this mystery villain, mystery mutant character, it was held onto for a long time. Like, Kurt Busiek gave up writing the title, passed it up to Fabian Nicieza, and he explained to Nicieza, like, hey,
is that how it's pronounced?
I'm pretty sure it's
What,
pronounced
Fabian
Nicieza.
Nicieza, okay. I
Nicieza,
got no idea how to say it. All right. Sorry, continue.
We could
But
be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Nicieza.
Okay.
I may be influenced by the cartoonist kayfabe guys.
All right.
And with most of these comic creators, until you hear their names spoken by them themselves,
Yeah.
can you really be sure how it's pronounced?
Yeah, but sometimes
Daniel didn't know Chris Pacciallo until he asked Chris Pacciallo directly.
No, that's not true. I
No?
listened to a podcast one day,
Oh,
and the
right.
guy said the guy introduced him as Pacciallo, and the Pacciallo said, "Yep, I am Chris Pacciallo," and then continued on. And it's just the other day.
Still to hear it spoken by the actual person
Yep.
in question.
And still the other day, I had to tell you it's pronounced Len Wayne, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of back and forth about that one I've seen, but I'm not getting into that. Like, just weirdness. But like with the Thunderbolts, like Nicieza, he totally loved the idea of who this mystery character was. Like, it was somebody who did exist within Marvel history, but had never shown up in an actual comic. So one reader figured out who this mystery character was before the story revealed it. So there was some fairly clever twists and turns throughout the comic. So, like, the various Citizen V identities, like, there's even a couple of Citizen V miniseries as part of the overall Thunderbolts run, just to try to deal with some of the, okay, what's going on? Okay, so this character was revealed as being this, but now they're doing this. But I thought this happened to them. So there's a bit to straighten out, thankfully. The proper usage for miniseries, I find. Don't just cash in on a certain popularity, but use it to tell a story that, actually makes a difference. During a bunch of this stuff, Graviton has popped up a couple of times, And he's not a villain that gets used a whole lot because he's so insanely powerful when he is used. Imagine if Magneto was just absolutely batshit insane. Like the amount of power, primordial forces that Magneto wields, and if he was just utterly insane. Like, how would you reason with the man? How would you deal with him? Like, Graviton is basically that. Like, the degree of what Magneto can do with the electromagnetic spectrum with his magnetic powers, Graviton can do much the same. And Thunderbolts managed to take him out a couple times. But part of that has to do with the fact that they've got a trained psychologist on their team. Carla makes him actually think about, what do you want? Like, you're telling us you're trying to take over the world. Why? What would you do with the world once you take it over? And that really disturbs him, that he doesn't have an answer, and he just takes off. But eventually he comes back and is like, okay, Carla Soffin, you're the only person that's actually made me really think about these things. You're going to be my personal psychiatrist now. So she's left trying to manipulate a literal madman. This is experience that comes in handy later on when she's dealing with Norman Osborn, but not in a good way, in a bad way. Like, she's already learned how to manipulate one insane psycho. She doesn't have to worry about the next one literally picking up the building, inverting it, and just crushing it back down into the earth. Nah. With Norman, all she had to worry about was him just busting out the old goblin gear and just running murderous through the complex. That was fun when it happened. So much fun. The Thunderbolts, they continue on through various adventures. Among various things, when the prison bit happens with Abner Jenkins, a couple other characters, in gaining amnesty, no longer are allowed to use their powers. Like Songbird, like, she's left being a civilian, but also because they've been, in their eyes, betrayed by Hawkeye, she's trying to track him down. There's more going on with why she's tracking him down, spy shit. But like, this is her doing stuff more or less as a civilian, no sonic powers or anything. That's not until a really well done Nuff Said issue that she gets that back. If you're not familiar with Nuff Said issues, they were pioneered, at Marvel at least, pioneered by an early issue of G.I. Joe, where Snake Eyes has to break into a Cobra facility to rescue Scarlet, and not a single bit of dialogue is spoken through the entire issue until I think the very end, when he finally does rescue Scarlet. Like, no dialogue, no captions. It's all told through the art, and it's also the first indication that there's some sort of hidden history between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. But it started a tradition of trying to tell stories creatively with absolutely no dialogue. Yeah. In the Thunderbolts Nuff Said issue, there had been a backup team of Thunderbolts created. Like, when the Thunderbolts went legitimate and were granted amnesty, there was a new team created. Some old members were kept, and a bunch of new members were added. One of those was a living sonic scream they called the Scream, and they didn't know what it was. They just found it in some vault of Zemos. And it more or less did whatever the team needed it to do. Like, it didn't seem to actually be sentient, not even to the degree that Man-Thing is. Like, it didn't even respond to, intense emotions. It's just kind of, they could direct it. A little bit more like that one No-Face guy in that New Mutants arc where they go back to Limbo and rescue the former babies.
Yeah, the guy that couldn't communicate, just tapped on his head to make him shoot or whatever.
Yeah, the Morse code and shit. Yeah, like, more or less one of those kind of characters.
By the way, he was literally just called Face.
Not even No Face, just Face.
Face.
But in the Nuff Said issue, something has previously caused Scream to go absolutely berserk, and it's absorbing all sound to some wide radius, so nobody in the issue can actually talk. So Songbird is like, writing plans and stuff to show them like what she can do. Like, hey, if she gets her old carapace, they can modify it to, instead of output her sonic scream into like the solid mass, draw it back in. They can suck him into it and then destroy it. In doing so, they kind of found out that it was the scream thing was Angar the Screamer's power. It when Baron Zemo picked Melissa up, he also took Angar's body, took his mutant larynx out. Now, I don't know if he was literally an X Factor mutant or just mutate, but took out his larynx and experimented on it until they could like actually form his sonic scream. So it's kind of a ghost scream, but that was kind of the first indication that Songbird's not just wanting to be good, she is good. Like in the years to follow this incident, characters start to notice like, you're Avengers level good. Like with some of the displays you've pulled off, you should be an Avenger. And she just dismisses the thought because she's a reformed criminal. Why would they want her on the Avengers? Pretty sure she does end up on the Avengers, though, doesn't she? A few years ago. But yeah, a few of them have gotten the proper redemption.
That's good.
I think it was the Redeemers that they the backup Thunderbolts were called. Oh yeah, it was Valerie Cooper's team. That's right. I forgot she was in it. When the government are dealing with superheroes, you can expect Cooper and everybody's favorite bastard to hate. You know who I want, Daniel?
Henry Peter Gyrick.
Anybody who watched the X-Men cartoon should remember this character. He is not just a thorn in the mutant side in the comics. He is a thorn in every superhuman side, hero and villain.
Is he the one that makes the Sentinels, or
No.
He doesn't make them in the
he's
X-Men
utilized them in
cartoon.
the past.
or is
In the
or is
X-Men
he
cartoon,
or is he he's just the senator? That's fucking annoying.
He's just the guy who works for the government, who is the go-to guy for the editors to use when they need a government stooge.
In the X-Men cartoon, he was the guy who sorry, my cat just jumped on my chest and my face. He was the guy who was working with Bolivar making the Sentinels. He didn't actually make them. He was just the guy telling Bolivar what he should be doing, and Bolivar actually made them. But he was that guy with the red hair and the sunglasses.
Sort of crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like the evil Fox Mulder. All these things exist and they're a threat and we have to kill them all. Like a couple of the larger arcing plots that the Thunderbolts have to deal with involve Gyrick either trying to fulfill his own anti-superhuman plots or having his own anti-superhuman plots taken over by other villains and brought to extremes that even he didn't think were feasible. But when Graviton comes back and they have the big huge battle to deal with him superhero style, a bunch of the various teammates from the Thunderbolts and the Redeemers, some of them all get a little bit mutant massacred. Some characters are left damaged, some characters are left dead, and it's another change up time. This is one of the fun, weird Zemo. What is he doing? Where is he at? He's a disembodied tech ghost hiding out in Fixer's tech pack. And because Fixer got his neck broken earlier, it's his tech pack keeping his spine together. And who's got control of that tech pack? It's Zemo. So yeah, Fixer is unknown to everybody else, just kind of doing whatever Zemo needs him to do. And this is all just happening underneath everybody's noses. Rest assured, Zemo's plot is to eventually get, if not his, a body back. One thing I will reveal, by the end of this particular character arc for Zemo, he ends up not just in his own body, but an unscarred version of his own body. Not the weird thing about it is he keeps hiding his face from everybody as if he still is scarred. Because
And how
by
did he get
thi-
scared again?
I forget the exact circumstances. It's been I think I might have the issues of Captain America that it happens in, but it's been like a decade plus since I've read them, so I don't really remember. Uh, I would assume doing battle with Captain America, hoisted on his own petard, the usual supervillain origin story, or at least second gen villain origin story.
Yeah.
No. But the thing with Zemo is he never actually believed his father's rhetoric. Like he wasn't directly raised by Zemo, and he didn't carry over to follow certain of Zemo's beliefs. Like Helmet isn't a racist the way his father is. Like he does have a sense of superiority, but that has more to do with his family history and bloodline than any actual ethnicity. Like he really doesn't care. Like the flashback issue is him as a young adult, but still fairly young in learning just exactly who his father is, like the real man behind the Nazi legends. And as his father's putting down this South American rebellion, people he's been enslaving to do his work, on one hand, he can see the sort of leader that his father is that inspires his troops, but also by the other hand, like he just doesn't understand all the, these people are lesser than us. They're subhumans. Like these are people just like us. They're not civilized like us, but that doesn't mean they're not people. He never had that same level of hatred to him, so a lot of it was kind of forced on him by his father. So by the time he gets into an unscarred version of his body, he now believes this whole redemption thing. He's got a bigger perspective on life and existence and things, and wants to actually save the world, not take over, but save the world. He had a little bit of practice of this on Counter Earth, that one that the High Evolutionary set up in exact opposite orbit of regular Earth. It was the place where Adam Warlock first became Adam Warlock. Like before
Okay.
that, he was just him. But after their experiences on the Counter Earth, no, sorry, no, that it gets confusing. There's a couple of Counter Earths. There's one that was created by the High Evolutionary in direct opposite orbit of our Earth, which is where certain Fantastic Four and Adam Warlock stories occurred. But then in Onslaught, when Franklin created the pocket universe of Heroes Reborn that everybody was hidden in, that was somehow simultaneously Counter Earth on the opposite side of the sun from our orbital rotation. And the weird thing is I had a mini series that's in Dan's collection because of Franklin Richards called Daydreamers, which more or less establishes that the pocket universe that all the missing heroes are hidden in is hidden inside the Hulk. You remember some of that, right, Dan?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
he got confused, like thought it was Man-Thing that was the big green monster, but turned out to actually be the Hulk.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
was just a weird mini series.
Oh, so much about Heroes Reborn and all that stuff is weird.
Yeah.
But like, you remember how in Heroes Reborn, Cap had that Bucky sidekick who was basically Carrie Kelly from Dark Knight
Yep.
Returns?
Yep. And eventually Onslaught possessed her
she-
years later.
Yeah, she initially comes to 616 regular Earth in the Thunderbolts stories.
Yeah.
They're rebelling as they're wont to do. But yeah, that's how she first comes back into play. But I got a bit of a gap in Thunderbolts after a little while here when we get to there's some crossovers with the Avengers. both a mini series and some stuff happening in Thunderbolts. I've got very little of that, so I don't know a whole lot of the direct history between Thunderbolts and Avengers, but they generally don't get along. There's a little too much history between certain members of both teams, a certain amount of distrust that is both unfounded and both definitely founded when it comes to certain characters. Like, nobody trusts Moonstone, and nobody should trust Moonstone. Even when her Kree Lifestone is, influencing her to be a good person, just don't trust her. Just don't do it.
If there's an opening for her to manipulate you and screw with you, even if she doesn't need to, she will.
Oh yeah.
She will.
Oh yeah. Because skipping ahead a little bit, we get to there's one unfortunate story arc. It's not actually Thunderbolts. There's an era in the early 2000s that they did it, or was it late 90s? No, early 2000s, where they revamped a number of lower selling titles to be completely different stories.
Yeah, it was like around 2001 when Jim House and Quesada took over.
Some of them were successful, like Mike Allred had taken over X-Force, turned it into something different. That became Ecstatic. Deadpool became Soldier X, which was Cable became Soldier X.
Deadpool became Agent X, which wasn't even a
Agent
Deadpool.
X was not well received.
Well, other than
Great artwork from
Gizmo.
Udon, but not well received at all. Wasn't she writing Deadpool before that?
Yep, this was
so.
editorial mandate.
Yep. Generation X suffered a change up, didn't it?
No, Generation X was a different one. What happened with that was the whole X-Men line got a whole switch over the year before in 2000.
Right, yeah. But with Thunderbolts, they completely abandoned the whole superheroes for redemption, and we follow some low-level, never heard of him before supervillain called Battler. He's given up his superhero identity after having had the crap kicked out of him by Superman and served like 4 years in prison or something. So now he's out and he's working the superhuman fighting ring. And that's it. It's Superhuman Fight Club in New York. There's nothing wrong with it itself, but it's just not Thunderbolts. It's got no business calling itself Thunderbolts. And it's a failure. Like, not as like a story, just as a title, it did not maintain, nor did it gain any readership. It lost readers. So they went back to what worked, and that's where we got new Thunderbolts. One of the earlier examples I can remember seeing of Marvel having dual numbering on the cover of a book, where like new Thunderbolts was like issue 1, but it also carried on the numbering from the previous issues of Thunderbolts. And I think they also included the Avengers Thunderbolts miniseries as part of that numbering, and then just picked up from there.
Right.
So like both numbers are on the cover of every issue. That's where Zemo starts building up some of his superhuman army stuff. Grandmaster wants to he's got some plot involving the Wellspring of Power, which is behind the scenes where a lot of superheroes get their powers from. If you're familiar with the book The Science of the X-Men, it goes into details about how most of these superhuman characters have to be able to tap into certain pocket dimensions for various energy transferences. The Wellspring of Power would essentially be that pocket dimension. There's a few variances, like the Dark Force dimension's its own thing, and there's a couple of others, but if you've got superpowers and there's a big question mark of how do your superpowers work, Wellspring of Power is how it works. Most of the Squadron Supreme, the original Squadron Sinister that were empowered in the 616, were directly empowered by the Wellspring of Power. So there's various shady going-ons behind the scenes with the Squadron Sinister, like this new incarnation. Like, they're trying to get Nighthawk to rejoin them because they need all the original members or replacements for those original members if said original members are dead.
Can't have that happen.
and it's the Grandmaster also manipulating things. So, you know,
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum in the comic books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's there's some stuff they can do with that character in the movies that would be a lot of fun, especially including his brother, played by Benicio del Toro.
The collector.
Yeah, there's actually a specific story in the comics where Grandmaster is having a big game to combat death to get his brother back. He wants the collector. The collector had died in a previous story, and the Grandmaster wants, like, they're not literal brothers. They're, you know,
Yeah.
fraternal brotherhood kind of stuff. But he wants his brother back. So like he challenges death for that sort of thing, which tells you the kind of power levels that somebody like the Grandmaster operates at.
Yeah.
Zemo manages to outmaneuver him. He manages to beat Grandmaster at his own game, but at the same time, he's been playing things far too close to the vest, has done a couple of things for the greater good that don't sit right with a few of the others, and has full on told them repeatedly, oh, Songbird's totally going to betray me. Yeah, the only reason she's getting tight with me and making out with me is because she's going to stick one in my back. It's okay, Songbird. I've got it coming. You should be doing this. But you guys not see this? She's not betraying you. She's setting herself up to betray me. I mean, this is obvious, guys. Come on. So he gets kind of sacrificed into the wellspring of power. That's when he goes off and has his own little mini series, Thunderbolts, Zemo, Born Better. You remember when Batman got hit by Darkseid's Omega beams, and then he got flung into the past and went through different incarnations of his history until he got home? Yeah, Zemo did it first. Yeah, Zemo got sent back hundreds of years into the past through his bloodline and was seeing different events that he knows of through studying his family's history, but is seeing them as they happen. So instead of seeing them through the lens of history, he's seeing the reality. And he's always known that Zemos are like Targaryens. They could either be super great or super awful. And he has seen the example of how one great one leads to an awful one, leads to a great one, and it just kind of goes back and forth. And he himself, he sees as one of those ones that could truly go
either way,
really good or really great. And as this is happening, he's being randomly flung at intervals closer and closer to his actual timeline, because we see that in the current timeline, there's somebody who's been studying Zemo's history and interviewing various descendants of the Zemo bloodline. And the end conclusion, when Zemo is finally brought to his proper timeline, he finds out that this interviewer himself is a descendant of Zemo and has been killing every single other Zemo descendant and using their deaths to bring Helmet back to the present just so he can kill him. And Helmet's like, oh, you've done all this and you think I'm bad. Damn. All right, if you want to kill me, kill me. You're so much worse than I could ever be. And that this is also one of the things that kind of spurs him on to be a better person. But because of Civil War, we get a massive regime change. Now, this is where I started actually reading Thunderbolts as like a regular title. Like, this became part of my pull list because it was announced that Warren Ellis and Mike Deodato were taking over. Already familiar with Deodato from various Chaos books and other things he had done, and Warren Ellis, by this point, you can't go wrong with something written by Warren Ellis. Not that you ever could, but it was known by this point. Warren Ellis, you're going to get something well written. So this version of the Thunderbolts has some new and some old ones. Moonstone's returned, Songbirds returned. Radioactive Man had actually been on an earlier incarnation briefly. He gets brought back.
Jiminy, did you look at his Radioactive Man?
Different Radioactive Man. This one's Chen Lu. I forget. I think he showed up as an Iron Man villain originally, but he is a Chinese nationalist who has uh, basically Carol Danvers when it comes to radiation. You know, the way she can manipulate all kinds of different aspects of the energy spectrum,
Yeah.
he can control almost every aspect of radiation. Like, I'm pretty sure he can make the Hulk de-Hulk by sapping all the gamma radiation from him.
That'd be handy.
We got Venom, but not Eddie Brock. This is when Eddie had given up the symbiote, auctioned it off, and it came into the hands of Mac Gargan, better known as the Scorpion.
Oh yeah.
He began operating as Venom. And he's not Venom with like a big stupid tail coming out of the back. Like, he's just Venom. They just stuck a different guy inside him so they
I think he maybe had like a slightly different designer in his eyes and like a slightly different spider design at his chest.
So there was
Diodato draws him a little bit messier looking.
So he wasn't doing
looks
like
a lot
spider.
more-
So it wasn't like Scorpion Venom. It was just Venom.
No, it
Venom.
was
Yeah.
just Venom.
Just straight up Venom.
We get a new incarnation of Swordsman. This one was Andreas Strucker, better known as one half of Fenris. They were the mutant offspring of Baron Strucker. So they're pretty big in Hydra. And my understanding that they are X Factor mutants. Can you confirm this, Dan?
What do you mean X Factor?
Like, they're mutants in the traditional sense. They're not.
Yeah, they're straight up
granted
mutants
their
that were in
powers.
X-Men.
Yeah, like they were like born with their abilities.
Yeah, no, they're straight up
They've got
mutants.
the X Factor in their brain that triggers the mutant ability.
I think they first appeared in X-Men 200.
But at this point, Andrea is dead, and Andreas has taken a strip of her skin, wrapped the hilt of his sword in it, so that he can still access their shared biomutant blast. So his sanity is taken into question a few times during this run. Speaking of sanity, we've got Bullseye on this team. He's actually the troubleshooter of the team. If they fuck up too bad, a team of handlers move in with Bullseye and he fixes the problem and then just gets shocked back into restraints.
Because he's Bullseye, and if you don't, he will kill everyone.
Yeah. But surprisingly, a couple times he turns out to actually be useful for the team. The other completely unhinged and damaged person on the team is the character at this point known as Penance. Originally, Penance was the name of a very confusing member of Generation X. Her initial description of who Penance is does not match what they do with the character later in the comic. Not one little bit. And it's confusing as fuck. And still kind of remains confusing to various degrees to this day.
Oh, House of X didn't help.
Oh, I'm sure not. This Penance, however, is the new identity of the former Speedball, Robbie Baldwin. He is suffering some massive PTSD. He's just fucked up from what happened at Stanford. As Penance, he has had a metal and leather bondage suit. There's no other description for it. He's had this suit made, and the inside is lined with a single spike for every victim of the Stanford explosion.
That's the thing that starts off the house.
Civil
War, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So after the events of Civil War, he's thrown onto the Thunderbolts as part of his rehabilitation program. Does that sound fine to you? No, Robbie is serious damaged goods on the team. His power signature has completely inverted itself. Like, he is no longer happy-go-lucky. He is like very depressed and feeds on pain to power his energy now. At one point during this arc, the Thunderbolts mountain gets infiltrated by a rogue group of psychics who just want to see the various members of the Thunderbolts punished for perceived crimes. They think they've got justice on their side, but they're just vigilantes. But during all this, Leonard Sampson is in Thunderbolts Mountain to have an independent psychological assessment of Robbie Baldwin. because he doesn't trust Carla Sofin one bit.
He's a
Uh,
smart man.
he knows her. They fought. Uh, there's been observations that the Thunderbolts is not the place for Robbie to be, and Samson is sent in to basically confirm this. Because of the psychics, things don't go well, but they Robbie displays Hulk level destructive capabilities. Like this was pointed out to Norman earlier. Like he had a bit of a freak out, trashed a room, and got stunned into unconsciousness for it. And then Norman's freaking out that I don't want this this wild kid. Like he's crazy. I can't handle him. I don't need someone with Hulk level abilities going off like this. And then Soffin's like, do you not just hear yourself? Hulk level abilities. We'll just keep manipulating him to do what we want. Which, as
Always goes well.
Samson, well, as Samson finds out very quickly that Robbie wants to get better. Psychologically, he wants to get fixed. Just he consciously doesn't know how to go about this, and the Thunderbolts is not the place for it to happen. Like Samson points out that in a completely relaxed and unthreatened atmosphere, his original speedball power signature briefly comes back. You know, and it's used in a different fashion than his penance abilities. Like penance is just like blue arcs of energy that just destroy everything around it. Kind of like the superhuman effects of the superhumans in Uber from Avatar, the way they just like create fields of destruction. Like that's basically what penance does. I have to cough. So this is who we start off with in the days following Thunderbolt or following Civil War, which in the comics also has certain marketing tie-ins. Like the Thunderbolts have like action figures and stuff. Like at one point in the comic, we see ads of like a Thunderbird style Thunderbolts mountain with like, you know, hidden compartments for vehicles to launch out of. And it shows like all the action figures and how like, you know, you can arrest characters like Captain America who has authentic screaming voice chip. Like they get pretty indulgent with some of the things that you would do with a more corporate run superhuman group.
Yeah.
But Norman is in charge, and Norman is not sane. And Songbird has access to Norman, and Songbird knows Norman's insane. Songbird or not Songbird, sorry, Moonstone. Moonstone knows all this. She replaces some of Norman's medication with placebos. She keeps doing things to mess with him psychologically, like hiding replicas of the Green Goblin mask in places, you know, just subtly suggesting things. And Norman goes off the deep end.
Yeah.
They manage to cover things up, but you know, from the way things progress with Hammer and eventually the culmination of Siege, you know, once everybody saw Norman leading the charge at the climax of Secret Invasion, you know, oh man, he can do no wrong. This is why it always bothered me that Barack Obama became president in the Marvel Universe after that election and not Stephen Colbert, because it made more sense to me that Stephen Colbert as president would put someone like Norman Osborn in charge. It doesn't fit as well with somebody like Barack Obama, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel that checks.
But if you watch like the Colbert Report, like, oh yeah, the character of Stephen Colbert would totally believe that Norman is completely reformed and ready to be a devout public servant. But yeah, things just degrade under Osborn's reign. He takes more of a backseat approach, like an offhand thing to running the Thunderbolts. Like the team changes over and they become just a black ops group to take out various characters that Norman wants gone. Eventually, that's the group that is sent in to cause problems with Siege, but then see that Siege is a bigger problem, and most of them rebel against Osborn. After that, we get the Heroic Age, and that's where Luke Cage takes over, and it's a prison work release program. A bunch of classic characters, Songbird, Mock 5 at this point, Fixer. They're all brought back as actual good guys to run the prison. There's plenty of really interesting additions to the team at this point. Like they start using Man-Thing as their transportation. This is where Ghost is brought back into it. He was part of Osborne's, but he was part of why Osborne's fell apart. He doesn't work in a system like that. But that story with Luke's Thunderbolts, we won't get into too much of it, but it's got lots of great twists and turns. Really satisfying conclusion, even if they do change the title to Dark Avengers before the title finally finishes. But the title change doesn't interrupt things. I will briefly mention, however, Red Hulk's Thunderbolts. I got suckered into buying it when it came out right after the previous title ended, and I wasn't happy with it. It was just a team, like Ross put together a group of red colored characters to go and do various missions that fulfill personal vendettas for all the characters. I don't know. It felt just like, oh, we've got a character who's named Thunderbolt. He should be in charge of the Thunderbolts. I'm trying to sell those issues now. I don't need them in my collection still. Even Ghost Rider being added to the team couldn't bring me in. Like I quit before then, and I didn't pick it back up. I did pick it back up when the Winter Soldier started up his team, but that one only ran 12 issues. It was a spinoff from Standoff, and I didn't read Standoff, so the early issues of that run are kind of confusing. He's taken a bunch of the Thunderbolts, and they've got that Kobik, the little girl that they made out of a cosmic cube. I don't know. They're trying to keep her safe. Yeah, Avengers Standoff just kind of came out of fucking nowhere, and it wasn't until well after that I even had any idea what the hell was going on with that story. It sounds interesting, but it came out of nowhere. But
Sounds like
that brings us up to most of the run of Thunderbolts. I think everything since then we've had been.
It looks like there's been a Punisher run that had Zemo bringing back a bunch of classic Thunderbolts. Mayor Fisk had a team of Thunderbolts. Nobody rates there. Taskmaster, sure, he's cool, but I guess that gives him legitimacy as a movie Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good series all in all. Like I'm still trying to collect through the entirety of it. I got
I have to see if I can
more to go through.
find some of the series here in
Yeah,
town.
the Heroic Age run is definitely a good place to jump on to. Same with the beginning of Warren Ellis's run. Earlier than that, stories tend to run together outside of the break that Fight Bolts provided.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how the various trades may work out for those ones. I know there's lots of trades for the Warren Ellis run. Buddy of mine has I think the whole run in trade.
Nice. And
But yeah, if there's a lot more depth we could get into with Thunderbolts, but again, there's a lot of really interesting twists and turns with the writing throughout the various eras, and yeah, surprise yourself. Read it, see what it's like.
all right, I'll have to check them out.
Except Ross's Thunderbolts, that one sucks.
All right, sounds good. Well, I think that'll be everything for now. So, thank you everybody for joining this week, and join us next time when we decide to do an episode. And don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to our podcast, and join us on Twitter at the Marvel Pod, Instagram the Multiverse of Marvel, and and also the Multiverse of Marvel wherever you get a podcast. And do you guys have Twitter, Instagram, or anything to plug?
Hells
Nope.
no.
No, which is probably the best way to go. But until next time, read some comics.
Read lots of comics.
Yes.